We talked about creating super PACs for black folks only. And, Mr. Wheeler, in fact, made the comment, why is it we have to apologize for asserting the fact that these PACs would be specific to meet the needs of, black and minority candidates? Number two, when I volunteered to do door knocking, I door knocked 300 and some odd doors. Now, as a volunteer,
Yes.
I could deliver whatever literature I wanted to. And I packed my own literature. Mr. Dillard's piece was on top of all of my literature, and did Mr. Shower and Judge Thomas. However, those individuals who were being paid
Yes.
by the super PAC could only, by commitment and where the dollars were going, could only deliver literature that emphasized Mr. Shower and Mr. Hughes.
Interesting.
So again, in
So that's a
those
partial
examples,
explanation. I'm
the
gonna come back to you
money-
guys.
The money was controlling access to that information.
That very, very insightful. Katrina, what happened?
As of recently, I've become very involved in politics, and when I say recently, I would say within the last year and a half, probably the last, since Obama's last election, I actually perked up. And I'm not gonna take a long time, but just to give you all a little bit of perspective, I had the opportunity, and to be honest with you, now that I look back on it in retrospect, I didn't realize the responsibility or the privilege that I had to run digital campaigns for the Democratic Party. So being able to have background in social media and all this digital stuff these days, I was able to have and see things that people talk about and see the statistics and data surrounding social media. And what I'm gonna say to you guys, just from my perspective of being what I call the face of the actual voter, up until 2 years ago, I never voted in a midterm election. And the reason that I did not, I'm highly educated, I'm an African-American woman, highly employed, I've never been unemployed, and all these other good statistical things that paint a great picture. But I didn't care, because I felt like you were not talking to me. And even as I still sit here in this room, some of the topics that you guys are talking about, the old me is still coming up like, that ain't got nothing to do with me. And
Interesting.
what I just have to say, and what I'm proud of, and the privilege that I had to be, in this campaign, is that someone like me actually represents the bridge of that gap. I had an opportunity to work with Keith and, some of the other people who are experienced in this campaign. I met Mr. Rick Blocker and did some things for the African American Alliance. I was very proud of that. But what I also learned, and what I'll be able to hopefully contribute going forward, is that social media rules. It
Right.
rules the world, whether we want to admit it or not. It is the floor of how you communicate to 36 and below.
Watch it.
40, you still, a couple years, my generation, you still can catch that door knocking. Door knocking means absolutely nothing to me. I will see that on my front door and throw it away.
Yeah.
What actually does mean something is somebody who knocked on my door and they happened to catch me and have a conversation at the bowling alley. Things like that, places where we participate. We live in a very fragmented society, but if you do not realize that, if you've seen the statistic, your cell phone is more powerful when they launch the spaceships in NASA. That is your number one
That's true.
communication
Good point.
tool, is your cell phone. So I was actually able to see, over that month, I did just about over a month, I did well over 1 million impressions. I actually got to see which campaigns worked and, what was the influence, and I was able to target the communities. And just to give you an example of how you creatively gauge reach, I use Scandal. Scandal on Facebook has 28 million people that like the page. Well, I could actually narrow it down to people in Michigan that like Scandal, and I actually targeted the women's campaign.
Wow.
About the unequal pay in African American women is 64%. And guess that ad was one of the best performing ones. And it's funny because Facebook actually told me, ooh, your campaign's doing all right.
Yeah.
And, being able to adjust them in that moment. Politics generally for my generation is seen as stale. It does not apply to me, and you're not talking to me. So one of the things that I know will work is we have to build a story of citizenship. Also
Go ahead,
education.
Katrina.
We're talking at a level And you mentioned some things to me, even as becoming involved, I have no idea, I don't know who Jim Maynard,
Jerry Manning.
Jerry, I don't know who that is.
It's coming.
Yeah. No, but but she's making an important point. She's making a very important point. Go right ahead. Right.
In a
Yeah, right. I got
joking
you.
way, when you say, I was like, okay, that's what I need to learn. I'm thinking this person. So, let's start at maybe a more fundamental level where people don't realize they do not teach politics in school. How are you going to understand where to vote in the Senate and the legislature and what it affects if you were never even taught that?
Good
I
point.
didn't even realize that they recruited people to work in politics. I thought that you had to be special up until 2 years ago to be in a political field.
Yeah.
You are not treated as a citizen. So social media is just a power, and it gives you statistics and data to support the offline campaign. So online will tell you what you need to do offline, because I've been selling internet for a long time. The one thing I always used to tell people, the internet allows you not to ask any more questions. It gives you the answers. So quit trying to make up what you think is the truth and look at the data and the statistics, and it'll tell you what the truth is. Because it is not our responsibility any longer to think for the masses. The masses is telling you what they want. If you don't
Very
understand
insightful.
that, you're going to lose out.
Very insightful. Thank you, Katrina Turnbull. Okay, go ahead, Ade, and then Rebecca.
From the beginning, when I learned that Mark Schauer was the Democratic candidate for governor, I asked one of the persons I know that's in the mix, I said, well, who chose him? I said, did the leadership choose him or did the base choose him? They said, well, the leadership chose him. Well, the process was flawed from the beginning because they selected a candidate and then tried to sell it to us. And then they told us to go out and sell him to the community. We never bought him.
Yeah.
We never chose him. So whose fault is it that they lost? It's their fault that they lost. Because the process was flawed in the beginning.
Just for a couple minutes, guys, we're going to wrap up because we're over our time. But several things, I think we've already agreed on several important things. We were here really not to necessarily articulate the agenda, but to just sort of decompress and debrief and assess what really happened. But we all agree that off year is an important time to engage and to educate. I think we all agree to that. You heard the report about social media. Whatever we're doing, if we're not engaging young people and using social media, we're set up for failure. I mean, it's going to be certain death. Am I correct? Yes. Rick highlighted something that should not be forgotten or overlooked. 93% of Detroit said, "To hell with Rick Snyder," and he's standing there taking a bow on all his successes. 93% of the folk who did vote in the city of Detroit said, "We don't like you, Mr. Snyder. So whatever you think you're doing for us, that ain't our priority." Simone?
I think we have to control the narrative. I talk to Rev and Hess about this all the time. We have to take charge and define the narrative as we see it collectively. The danger in that, though, is that we're not defining it solely as we see it. I appreciate Keith's definition of power and pride. We have to ask young people, do they even know what it is? Do they have it? A young man told me, he said, Simone, voting is tied to consciousness. It's tied to a heart, a soul. It's a lot of young brothers and sisters don't have that. They don't have heart. They don't have a soul. They don't have a consciousness, some of the things that they're doing. And so we have a certain subset that a lot of remedial work has to be done with. Then there's the side that I get to see on the funding side of politics. This group that we're talking about needing to educate, that's not the priority of people in politics. It's just not, y'all. And so if you're not educated, good. That means we ain't got to deal with you. Hopefully you won't even be a part of the process.
That's interesting. Yeah.
The reality is he won by 128,000 votes. I was asking, how come we just couldn't, because the people that came to the polls was coming anyway. So how come we couldn't just target 129,000 specific individuals who otherwise wouldn't come and just make sure they came to the polls versus spending all the money and all the effort that we did? The other piece I think is, I like Keith's conversation I've been sharing with Hess. I would love for us to have an African-American roundtable of Southeast Michigan where we came together. We got to really look at where black people are now. It's not in Detroit like it used to be. We also have to put a priority and a challenge to elected officials like myself outside of Detroit that in your county, on the stage you sit on, you pass those resolutions. You push your state legislator to back up off or say something about emergency manager. Miss Rep out of Ann Arbor, because that's where African Americans have moved. We have to look across this state and see where black political power is up and coming. That's on school boards. If you look at elected officials where African Americans sit in predominance, we found this when we were looking to provide a list of names of African Americans that could potentially run. It was a shocker how many sat on school boards, not county commissions, because we know that's more predominant down in Southeast Michigan. So that's our farm team, those folks sitting on school boards when we talk. So is going as precinct delegates. When we were pulling, John Conyers came here for election day and he said, Simone, I want to call precinct delegates. And I'm like, it's 128 pages, Congressman. And so we printed out 10 for him. The reality was it was so many gaps. You could have 40 precinct delegates allowed in this area, you got 2.
Right.
You could have 30 in this area, you got 5.
Correct.
So that means somebody needs to be in that one precinct, knocking on doors. You got an 18-year-old in this house?
Right.
He'd be a precinct delegate,
Right.
period. That's just a baseline recruit, no experience, fill those gaps right away. And then you move those folks into our conventions and our meetings.
Yes.
But the last piece, I can't stress enough, those are separate things, y'all. Enlisting new folks into the game is new and costly. It is not the top priority of those of us that are on the front line in the game already.
I agree with
And
that.
so when we talk about money for PACs,
Yeah.
we can imagine if history is any indicator, we're gonna raise less. We can just imagine that. We're gonna raise less, which means we have to be much more judicious in where we spend it.
Right.
So we ain't gonna spend it on a fly-by-night chance that you could become a whatever in this election. It may be we stand right here at the school board, we're gonna fund the whole school board and we're gonna get 6 seats. So we have to have those kind of conversations around the money piece as well.
Very insightful. Anything else? I think it's okay to dismiss just before lunchtime. Thank you guys very much. Thanks. Thanks, Camelia Landrum. Thanks, Deion Williams. Thanks, Rick Blocker. Thank all you smart people. Thanks, Ade. Thank you.